Hello, hello. Welcome to the chat with Selassie. I am your host. This is part two of Ramiro's story. If you missed part one, you missed a lot because he told us so much about his life. He told us about how he overcame abuse and homelessness. A lot more. You might want to check it out. Also, do not forget to hit the red button below and subscribe. Tell your family, your boo, and whoever to subscribe. Join the family. Now, let's get to it. Thank you for being here with us. And seriously, I really appreciate you sharing your stories with us. And last week, you did share a lot of things with us. And you did mention prison. But before we continue from there, I'd like for us to go back a notch, right? Let's talk more about Pastor Mike. You living with your family. How was that like?
So, Pastor Mike, really nice guy. Him and his family, they actually live in Florida now. They have, two sons now, and both of them view me as a brother. At the time, she was pregnant with one of the kids, but yeah, they're a beautiful family. They helped me out a lot when I was here. Obviously, like what they did initially, right? But he was really a mentor to me. He talked to me. He helped me out through a lot of stuff. He gave me structure. He gave me discipline. He would talk to me. Got me involved in my faith more, right? And he wanted me to move with him to Florida, but I guess I had met so many people by that point, and I just decided to stay because I just got comfortable here in the environment that I was in. But one of the really cool there's a lot of cool stories, but one of the biggest things that happened to me when I was with him was I was about to go back to Texas to visit my family. And, getting a driver's license here in Georgia, I don't think I've told you this before, but this is a good one. This is a good one. But when you get a driver's license here in in Georgia, so I had a birth certificate, right? You got to show my birth certificate, whatever. But my birth certificate didn't have the seal on it. So, are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like, there's a seal.
I know
right?
the seal.
Yeah. So they're like, hey, no, that's not gonna work. Like, you have to call back to Texas, to the hospital where you were born at, and see if they could send you one so that you could get your driver's license here. Cool. Called the hospital, gave him my information, gave him my mom's information, gave him all of that. Well, I was about to head out to Dallas, fly back to Dallas. And as I was leaving, Pastor Mike was going to take me to the airport. As I was leaving, I get a phone call from somebody at the hospital in Dallas. So I go back inside, I get the phone, they're like, hey, may I speak to Mr. Gutierrez? And I was like, who? They're like, Mr. Gutierrez, Ramiro Gutierrez. I was like, Ramiro, just giving me a lesson there. And I was like, nah, I don't know who you're talking about. My name is Ramiro Gonzalez. And so they're like, is this your social? And I was like, yeah. And then they're like, is this your mom? And is this her social? I was like, yeah. And I was like, and then the lady told me, she was like, sir, you've been going by the wrong name your whole life. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, your name got changed at birth. And I was like, say what? So I was all confused. Well, remember I told you that my dad had left, right? Well, when I was born with his last name, Gutierrez, right? And then she was so upset. She didn't want nothing to do with him that she gave me her last name, but
without
she
legally
didn't without legally doing it. So I had a false social, I had a false everything. Everything about me was false. And I even graduated with my it's crazy because I still have that diploma. So my vaccination records, everything were under my other last name. So, yeah, when I got back to Dallas, I brought it up to my mom, and at that point, she hadn't, really talked to me much. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it just added on to why I resented her. You know. And not just her, but just people in my family, like, because they knew about it and they didn't really say nothing to me. And yeah, she told me what had happened, and she said that she was just upset, and that she had switched it illegally, and basically I lived a lie for the first 18 years of my life. So I had to go back and get my name changed. Well, in the process of getting my name changed, when they ran my fingerprints, they noticed that somebody else was using my original Social Security number, right? And they had a felony charge in Dallas for some drug trafficking or something like that. So I had to go back to Dallas and not only talk to my mom about that, but then clear my name up. So they had to clear my name and make sure that I wasn't that person. But it was crazy.
How did you guys separate?
I mean, I was a young kid at the time. And, I had, like I said, I had built new relationships here with people, some of them good, some of them bad. But he had, was about to, I guess, start a church down in Florida. And he wanted me to move with him. And I told him, no, I'm going to stay here. And they begged me to go. And he knew I needed that structure, but he really couldn't force me to. And you're talking about a family that brought me in. They were calling me son. I could call him right now. And he'd be like, what's up, son? I've been to his house just recently, maybe 2 years ago. And there's a picture of me on the wall. It says family. And I'm one of his sons. So they view me as family. So he was hurt by it. And yeah, I just told him nah, I'm good. I'm gonna stay. I appreciate everything you've done for me, but
so basically they had to leave without you and leave you behind. Did they leave you behind with something? Did they give you?
No, I had moved into my own place.
Oh, yeah. So you were okay.
Yeah, I was good. Yeah, okay. I was comfortable. Like I said, I was.
Did you have a job at that time?
Yeah, I was working at the same place.
You were still working in the real estate business?
No.
So, you're working in the same job that they had found for you. Okay.
They had found for me.
And you were making enough to live by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a roommate, and we were just staying there, and I didn't want to move. In my eyes, hey, I'm young. I have no responsibility. I'm meeting people, and it just made sense for me to stay at the time. Great. Looking back, I probably, who knows what would have happened, but.
Great.
Yeah. Great. Sometimes I go back and I wish I would have, because he was such an influential person to me.
I mean, but you see, I feel like the thing in life is sometimes we feel had we done the things we would have done, we think that our life could have been better. But what if the right decisions and the right choices is actually what we made, Yeah. Because if you had done that, who knows, you wouldn't be who you are now. You'd have been a different person. And we don't even know that would have been right, Yeah. So I feel like we just need to trust that we have made the right decision, right? Yeah. So that was a beautiful backstory. Now I wanted to bring us into, you said the only way you got sober, you did mention that the only way you got sober, and basically stopped doing drugs was when you went to prison, right? So take us into that. How did you go into prison, and what was the life like in prison?
Well, how did I go in prison? Well, I asked for permission to go to prison, and they were like, yeah, go ahead. But no, so let me go back before I answer your question. I'm going to go back and say one last thing about Pastor Mike.
Okay.
But I think that another reason why I didn't want to go with him is because I felt like he was superior to me, and I didn't want that hanging over my head. I didn't want to feel like I had somebody to tell
an authority.
Me what to do. Yeah, an authority figure.
You didn't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then he had me Like he knew everything I was doing, when I was doing it. Like he had me like, but he was doing that for my own good. I mean, at the time, but now I didn't realize it. But so yeah, you know, you get comfortable, and I've said it earlier and say it again. Like it doesn't matter how far you move away from a situation, if you're not right mentally or, you know, internally in your heart, then you're always going to go back to what you were doing. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I just got caught up with some things, and you know, you do the crime, you're going to do the time, and I had to do 5 years in prison.
5 years in prison. How old were you when you went to prison?
I was 20.
And so you were 25 when you were leaving prison. When you were in prison, did you have hope? Did you think you were ever going to get out? Because I've heard stories where people go to prison and they end up staying longer.
Yeah.
Right? So did you have hope when you entered immediately, knowing that the freedom you had, you no longer had that freedom? First of all, tell me about your first day in prison. What was that like?
Well, my first day in jail, because that's what happens first, right? I was in shock, right? So I still remember getting arrested. I still remember them taking me to the holding cell or to the detective place, and I still remember them questioning me. Like I remember feeling just defeated. Like, is this real? Still remember them booking me and like them shaving my head and then putting me in a dormitory with other people who were looking at like life sentences. I still remember like waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. The next morning I was like, what is going on? But they woke everybody up for breakfast, and looking down at my whatever the plate was, and looking at grits. I didn't even know what grits were. So I got to prison.
Oh, I love grits though.
Yeah.
I have some right now at home. I love grits.
Yeah, but I was just in shock, honestly. Like I woke up, you know, the next day, and I was like, this can't be real. Like I'm gonna get out. Like I'm gonna get out tomorrow, and I was in denial. But no, it definitely wasn't that, you know. I stayed in the county jail, I think for a good year, went through my whole trial process there, and I remember going before the judge the day that I got sentenced, and, you know, they're then telling me like, yeah, you're gonna be sentenced to 5 years in prison, and on top of that, you're gonna have 5 years probation when you get out. You know, so, but, and then there was another thing that I got at the time, which is pretty awesome. So remind me to tell you about this thing, but I'm not going to tell it right now. But yeah, the judge was just reading everything out to me, and I just felt like this sense of numbness. You know, I was, yeah, I don't know if, like, have you ever like almost gotten, probably not because you're so good, but like, have you ever almost gotten in trouble? Or when you do get in trouble, you just feel like your legs, like you're about to pass out.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's exactly how I felt when I was standing up in the courtroom. And then, yeah, I get back in there, and that was that. I was ready to get sentenced. Now, in saying that, when I was in jail, I didn't have anybody, right? But people came to visit me who I hadn't talked to in like months, right? People, so it led up to this, right? I was partying, was doing drugs, I was going out. And the people who were looking out for me, who wanted me to do good, those were the people I was pushing away from me, right? And I hadn't talked to them in forever. And yeah, they came to visit me in jail. There's one family in particular that stuck with me. The only family, actually, who stuck with me from the day I was locked up all the way until I left. They came and picked me up when I came out of prison. But yeah, after a year, I got sent to prison here in Jackson, and they did their.
And how was the life there? How was the life like? I got educated today by you and some of my crew members about what "don't drop the soap" means, right? Or "drop the soap." You know, I didn't know what that meant. So, if you can talk more about how the life, you know, in prison was like for you.
Yeah.
Because I also remember that you told me a little bit about how you went in there being hard-headed.
Yeah.
Wanting to be like, hey, I know this, you can mess with me, whatever.
Yeah.
But you didn't know that you had to be the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a guy in there that told you that, nah, do this, do
Yeah.
that. Can you talk to us more about that?
Yeah, so one thing that I learned when I was in there is that they say prison is like a world within a world, right? So while you're in there, the world around you is still spinning, it's still moving, life is still going. But prison is no joke. For me, like, I was scared, so like I was telling you, I initially was at Jackson, right? It's a local prison here. It's a diagnostic center. And when I was in there, I was locked up for like 23 hours a day. I think I got out just to go outside or to go eat, right? And then go outside for a little bit, but then we were locked up most of the time. And I think it was probably about as big as this right here, this area rug.
And how many of you were in the room?
It was just two. And when I was in there, like, I had different roommates, right? Some of them like committed murder. I had one roommate who every time I would go like pee, because the urinal's like, if this is the bed, the urinal's literally right here, right? Connected to a sink, by the way. But every time I would get up, he would just be like rocking on his bed. And then he's like, do you hear them? He would ask me, he's like, do you hear them? And I was like, hear what? Well, come to find out, he had killed his girlfriend and her baby, and he was hearing them.
The person you were in the room with.
Yeah, so
that killed his his girlfriend and the baby.
Yeah. So but I was in different cells with different people. One thing I learned is don't ask them what they're locked up for, right? Just do your time and just do what you got to do, right?
Were you scared knowing that you were in the room?
Yeah.
With someone? Did you ever feel like maybe he's gonna harm me?
Yeah.
Maybe he's gonna kill me?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because there's a set of rules in prison that you have to follow, right? And I was learning all that one by one. Like, all right, I'm sleeping in the bottom bunk, right? Or if I'm sleeping at the top bunk, right? Then I have to know which side to swing my leg so I don't hit the person. If I come in, I can't just make myself at home and sit on his bed, right? It's just little petty stuff. Like, if I gotta go to the bathroom and I'm like using the number 2, I have to put up like a blanket so that nobody sees it, right? There's just like a lot of little nuances, and I didn't know them.
They don't tell you that?
No, they don't tell me that. Like, the first day that I got in there, I remember they called for a shower call. So they opened up the top tier of the dorm. I got out. I went down there. I was taking my good old time. I was like just taking a shower, wiping everything down. Little did I know that you only have like 5 minutes to shower, right? And when I got back upstairs, they had already locked my cage and they threw my stuff off the top thing. Like, they threw my bed, all my personal belongings. The guard threw it. And I had to go downstairs and pick it up butt naked. And so then that's when, I started learning things, and it's just prison politics and jail politics and things like that I had to learn, but that was just a diagnostic center. And then I got sent to my, the prison where I was going to stay at. And, while I was there, I had details, so I got to go out and work, right? And then come back, and I got certified to be a heating and air technician while I was in there, but it's very scary. It's very, very, very scary. And one of the things that you had mentioned was that, and that I had mentioned to you before, was that, when you go in there, I thought that I had to be like this hard ass, right? Like that I had to be like Macho Man or something. And so I would go in there, I was cussing everybody out. I was like, fuck away from me. I was saying just dumb stuff, right? I would smoke cigarettes because I thought I was bad. You know what I mean? I would just smoke it in front of everybody. People were like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? You know what I mean? I would cuss. I was just loud and obnoxious. And one day, I'm not going to mention his name. I know I've mentioned it to you before, but I'm not going to say his name. But one day I was taking a shower, and, on the weekends, usually all the lights are off, right? you have time because people are sleeping in, so you have time in the morning to take a shower, have peace by yourself. Well, I had shampoo on my head, right, and I remember I was bathing, and this particular person came up behind me, and they had a shank. A shank is like a knife, right, and he choked me, and he held the shank up against my back, and I felt his penis basically in between my ass, right? And he told me, he whispered in my ear, I remember it, and he said, I ought to rape you right now, is what he said. He's like, but I'm going to spare you, and I'm going to talk to you when you get out of here. And he pushed me up against the wall. Man, I got out of that shower so I don't even remember like washing my hair off or nothing. I got out of there, and he came and looked for me afterwards, and he's like, look, he's like, I understand what you're trying to do, because in there you're either a predator or you're a prey, right? That's the mentality people have. But he said you have to learn how to respect yourself, especially in here, because if you don't respect yourself, then other people aren't going to respect you. And if other people don't respect you, then they're going to try you up, and you have either two options. You're either going to go, you're either going to get raped, or they're going to like respect you and like leave you alone. So yeah, he taught me a valuable lesson, and we became really close. Obviously he was just trying to teach me something to do, to have a life sentence. So he could have done anything to me and wouldn't have cared.
So it looks like in your life, you've had like angels, it's like plotted
all
definitely. Over, the little prints. And it's like, for you, it's like, you didn't have to look too far. Some of them were right before you. Some of them was very, very little, but there were always helpers.
Yeah.
Even in prison, to the extent that even in prison, this guy who was holding the knife, and I think if I remember right, you said that he was in there for life imprisonment, I guess? Yes. So he had nothing to lose. Raping you, killing you, he really had nothing to lose because he's already lost everything. But even at that point, you still found grace in prison by and with someone who has nothing to lose and is in there for life.
Yeah.
But he still gave you grace. He still actually became your friend and started advising you.
Yeah.
How did, knowing that you had all these angels and people looking out for you from all these places, from what you've told us, how did that make you feel? Even in prison, did it give you hope, like having this person?
No, not really. I mean, because you got to look at it like, I've been through so much up to this point. And at that point, I felt like, oh my gosh, like it's real. Like I'm about to do every single day of these 5 years in here, right? And not only that, I really wasn't talking to my family, right? They knew about me, but they knew that I was in there, but it's not like we had a constant
Did they come visit your mom and your sister, your brothers?
No,
did they come visit?
No.
None of them?
No. And at this point, I wasn't talking to my mom. But that brings up a great point, because of prison, it allowed me to open up and build a relationship with not only my mom, but also my father. So he came into my life when I was in prison. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it gave me hope, you know what I mean? Like, prison is not a joke. Like, it is what you make it, right? But it's not fun. Like, everything is stripped away from you. Freedom, like, you have nothing. You have nothing. So it was tough.
Okay, so you reconnected with your father when you went to prison.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about that? Like, what was it like reconnecting with your father? Did he play any pivot role, in your life in prison or at all after that?
Not really. Because at this point he hadn't been in my life. But what it did do is I found out that I had 2 brothers and a sister on that side of the family. And I've become really close with them to this day. But, before I talk about my dad, and I appreciate you asking me about my dad, I think what's more important is my relationship with my mom.
Okay.
Because she and I reconnected when we were back in there. And that was just a beautiful story, and I was able to talk to her. And
how was that? How did you reconnect with your mom?
She found out that I was in prison.
Oh, so she didn't know you were in prison
No,
for
she
how
didn't.
long?
I'm telling you, we weren't talking.
So for how long did she not know?
I would say it's probably about a year,
Oh,
year and a half that I was
okay.
locked up.
How did she
And
find out?
somebody in the family told her.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did she come visit after knowing?
Nobody. I had nobody here. Everybody lives in Texas.
Texas, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I basically did it on my own. It was hard on her. I know that for a fact. And I spoke with her on the phone, and we were able to, build some type of bond.
Mm.
And we were able to talk about things that we weren't able to talk to in the past. But when you're in there, like, what else do you have to do? Like, being in prison isn't the time to hold grudges against people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you just don't know what's gonna happen when you're in there. And so she was just more worried about me, and I was worried about her. And my little brother and my little sister, I didn't have really much of a relationship with them either. And they would talk to me on the phone, and they would tell me how they looked up to me, and which is still crazy. And even to this day, they tell me that they look up to me, and I wasn't even in their life really. Like, when I left, it was 14, 15. They were like babies, and but I think it's just really important that I tell you that was a huge moment in my life.
And it's so beautiful that something that could make others angry
Yeah.
was what gave you the connection. Because some people, it could have been different for some people, where I'm in prison, you are my mom, you found out a year later that I was in prison, you never came to visit.
Yeah.
So you have every right to be angry. Rather, it drew you closer for whatever reason, for whatever thing. You guys reconnected again after you had gone to prison. And even though she didn't come visit, you still, one way or the other, found a way to. So it's just so beautiful how we all take things in, we all receive things, and just beautiful how we all react or respond to them, right? Let's jump to the happy part, where it's time for you to get out of prison.
Yeah.
What were you feeling? What was your mental process? Where were you emotionally? Where were you mentally? How was that?
Well, I mean, I was excited, obviously. The thing is that I had to find a place to stay, right? Or else I was going to stay locked up. So the way it was like, hey, find a place to stay, or you're going to stay here until you find a place to stay. So that was tough. And I remember towards the end of my sentence, my counselor called me into her office, and she's like, so do you know where you're going to go? And I was like, no, not yet. And then she's like, well, you have to know something soon, because we have to submit the paperwork, and if you don't, then we're going to have to keep you here. And I was like, yeah, I got it. And then she's like, well, the good thing is that you got sentenced under the First Offenders Act. And I was like, say what? What are you talking about? She's like, yeah, do you not remember that? And I was like, no. And she's like, yeah, like the judge sentenced you under the First Offenders Act. So when you get out and you complete your prison sentence, all of this will be wiped off your record. And I was like, say what? She's like, yeah, all of it's going to be wiped off your record. I was like, there's no way. She's like, yeah. So she's like, you need to find somewhere to stay at. Well, remember I told you I had this family, right, that stuck with me while I was in there.
Yeah.
Well, they had a friend who knew nothing about me, and he allowed me to stay in his home. I'm telling you, it's crazy. Like, I'm telling you this, and I'm still in shock, because it's like, it's people that I don't know are the ones that are helping me out. But he said that I could stay with him, and I remember this family came to pick me up, and the first person I spoke with was my sister, the one that I had stole from. She was the first person to call me, and I remember going to Waffle House and just staring at the spoon, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like silverware, like this is awesome. And I remember going home and taking a shower and playing with the light switch, like just flickering it on and off. And yeah, I was really happy. Like, I was really excited, and I was just ready to move past that. But it was just so surprising. Like, I was so in shock when I got sentenced that I didn't even hear the judge say, like, yeah, you're getting sentenced under the First Offenders Act. And yeah, it's been a blessing even now. Like, it's crazy. Like, there's jobs that, like, whenever they're like, hey, we're going to do a background check on me, I'm like, all right, cool. And then they look at it and there's nothing that shows up. That's why, you know, when people, like even you, like, remember when we talked before, right, this film session, we had a conversation. I remember telling you, and you're like, what? You know, like, I remember seeing your face, like, some shock. And it's just the way it is. You don't ever know what somebody is going through, you know?
Yeah.
But
because I couldn't make the connection between the man sitting in front of me and the man that you were telling me had gone to prison.
Yeah.
I just couldn't make the connection.
Yeah.
I almost didn't believe you. And at a point, you had to show me your, I call it the prison headshot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. My mugshot.
Yeah, you had to show me that. At that time, you were young. You were really, really good looking.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to ask for us to, you know, end this this part is that I don't know how it felt to you, but to me personally, I feel like, yes, I'm happy that I got out of prison and everything. But now that I'm out, my sister is calling me, my family is calling me.
Mm-hmm.
You were not there for me when I needed you. So how did you do that immediately? Like, how did you receive the call immediately and then jump into, yay, we are happy?
Well, I mean, 5 years was a long time. And there was letters that were written. There was money.
By them?
There was money that was deposited. You know, there was, you know, it was a 5 year. It's just like when you're dating somebody, it takes time, right? And it's the same thing that happened with them. It was just something that was built. Even with my mom, you know, there was long letters that. It's crazy because now that I just say that, I have a whole stack of letters that I kept that are in there. But you know, it was just, it wasn't like they didn't talk to me and then at the end when I get out, they talk to me. Nah, they
were just not there physically.
Yeah, they weren't physically there.
But they cared for you in other ways.
Yeah. Okay. Like, they would talk to me on the phone when they could. And, you know, a prison call isn't cheap. You know what I mean? And, you know, financially, I knew they weren't going to be able to provide a lot. But, you know, they were there. And, yeah.
Ramiro, again, thank you for sharing this story, because I know that you have to be very vulnerable or willing to be vulnerable to share this story with us. So we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for saying my name correctly, finally.
Oh, did I? Did I?
Yes, you did.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching The Chat with Selassie. Don't forget to tune in next week for part 3, where we will be discussing life after prison with Ramiro. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to, you know, come here same time next week. I'm excited to be your host. Selassie, have a fantastic week. Plenty of kisses. Mwah, 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 mwah.